Hello, everyone. Welcome to this mini lecture. Previously, we learned how to use the marquee tools, and in this lesson, we will learn about editing selections. This lesson will be structured around 4 key sections: learning objectives, knowledge map, knowledge points, and summary. The learning objectives for this lesson are: 1. Grasp the 4 selection operations. Creating a new selection, adding to a selection, subtracting from a selection, and intersecting with selections. Besides, you should be able to accurately use these functions in practical operations. 2. Master selection editing shortcuts. You should be able to use shortcuts to complete operations like select all, Ctrl+A, inverse selection, Ctrl+Shift+I, deselect, Ctrl+D, reselect, Ctrl+Shift+D, and move selections. 3. Practical operation. Independently and accurately apply the above selection tools and shortcuts in a given image task, demonstrating a comprehensive grasp of selection editing. This is the knowledge map for this lesson. Please take a careful look. We will briefly go over the different ways to edit selections. First, let's explore the different operations you can perform with selections. Selection operations refer to 4 basic actions: creating new selections, adding to selections, subtracting from selections, and intersecting with selections. These operations are represented by buttons on the toolbar: new selection, add to selection, subtract from selection, and intersect with selection. Let's create a new 800 by 600 white document in PS and explore the rules of selection operations. Draw a rectangular selection at random, then experiment with the effects of different selection operations. In the new selection mode, the new selection replaces the previous one, which effectively cancels and reselects. This feature can also be used to deselect by simply clicking anywhere on the image with the selection tool. In Add to Selection mode, the cursor changes to a cross with a plus sign, and the new selection is added to the existing one. Create 2 rectangular selections. If the new selection is outside the old one, 2 separate marching ants, dotted lines, appear. Press Alt+Delete to fill the selection with the foreground color, red, and Ctrl+D to deselect. Create 2 overlapping rectangular selections, and the selections will combine into one closed marching ant. Press Ctrl+Delete to fill with the background color, yellow, and Ctrl+D to deselect. Select the elliptical marquee tool, set the operation mode to subtract, and notice that the cursor now includes a minus sign. The old selection will then subtract the new selection. If the new selection is outside the existing one, there will be no effect. Use 2 circular selections to create a crescent moon, and press Ctrl+D to deselect. When creating a selection, hold down the Shift key to create a perfect circle. Then create a smaller circle intersecting the first. Only one selection outline appears. Fill with the background color, yellow, to create a moon shape. If the new selection overlaps the old one, the intersecting area is subtracted from the old selection. Press Ctrl+D to deselect. If the new selection is within the old one, it will create a hollow selection. Note that in subtract mode, if the new selection completely covers the old one, an error prompt will appear. This is like having 3 acres of land and trying to subtract 4 acres. Nothing remains. Intersect selection. Also known as selection intersection, the cursor changes to a cross with an X. The effect is to keep only the overlapping area of the new and old selections. First, draw a perfect circle with the elliptical marquee tool, then switch to intersect mode to draw a rectangle. After choosing the new marquee tool, be sure to check the selection operation mode. Switch the rectangle operation mode from add to intersect, and you'll get a quarter circle where the rectangle intersects the circle. Fill this with the foreground color, red. If there is no overlap between the selections, a warning box like the one shown will appear. These 4 selection operations apply to all selection tools. Any selection tool can use these 4 operations. They are not limited to any specific tool type. You can use the lasso tool to subtract from a selection created with the magic wand tool, or combine rectangular and elliptical marquee tools to create a new selection. In addition to switching operations via the command bar, you can also use keyboard shortcuts. It's recommended to set the operation mode to new selection on the command bar and use shortcuts to switch modes, as this is more convenient and practical. The shortcut for adding to a selection is Shift, for subtracting is Alt, and for intersecting is Shift plus Alt. These shortcuts only need to be held down before you click the mouse. After clicking, you can release the shortcut key. For example, to add to a selection, hold down Shift, then click and drag the mouse. At this point, you can release Shift. Practice this technique multiple times and use it in practical scenarios. In addition to learning selection operations, we also need to learn some common shortcuts for editing selections. Use the rectangular marquee tool to create a rectangular selection. Ctrl+A to select all. Ctrl+Shift+I to inverse selection, Ctrl+D to deselect, and Ctrl+Shift+D to reselect. In this lesson, we covered selection operations, such as select all, inverse selection, deselect, reselect and move, along with their shortcuts. The topic of selection editing has now been fully explained. Please complete the following exercises and practice further to deepen your understanding and improve your skills. That concludes this lesson. See you next time.